Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Right, before I forget, let me share this. Right, God. I always forget. Let's see. Let's get this. Alright, almost done. Okay, yep, done. Lillahi alhamd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Inna alhamdulillahi wa kafah. والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد مرة أخرى سلام الله عليكم. Bienvenidos a todos. أهلا وسهلا people, welcome back. Alright, shukran. Yeah, as you can see, the haircut was way overdue. So I went today, and although for a moment he turned it into a nightmare, but then he fixed it up. Alright, so what do we have today? Ya salam. Let's see, what do we have today? Let's get into some of those questions that are already there. And what I'll try to do today is I'm going to try to, I see Mudathar has given me a shout out already saying, where are you at? I is right here. Estoy aquí. This is where I am, but I'm just late as always. Story of my life. But let me bring up some of those questions. And what I was going to say that I will be doing is I'll try to be fluctuating back and forth, trying to take more questions from you guys, from you all people, from all of you, as well as those which have been sent previously. So not exactly sure how that's going to, because sometimes whilst I'm trying to deal with the questions that have already been submitted, I'm missing some of you guys, and I try to balance. But then the issue is that I only have like an inch of a screen here on the iPad, where the comments are kind of really, whizzing and zooming through, because every time somebody joins or comes on or comments something, the other comments already disappeared. So it's difficult to sometimes catch up, but I'm going to try. That's the spirit. That's the main thing. Himmate marda madade khuda. That's the thing. We gotta try, people. We gotta try. So let's see. Allahu Akbar. Please attempt to answer my question from before. Shed light on the matter of abrogation. Ya salam. Shall we begin with Sajid Riyasat Saab's question? Dedicated to you. This is going... Let's take a look at this question, people. I'll tell you what, let's start with it. What the hell? Let's begin with it. So, right, abrogation. Let's get right into the serious. Look at that. We're getting into the serious kind of... serious matters right there. Now, abrogation is called in Arabic Naskh. Okay. But what it means is the cancelling of something. And in this context, we're talking about the verses of the Qur'an being cancelled. Abrogated, the more technical term. Now, based on the verse, ما ننسخ من آية أو ننسها نأتي بمثلها أو خير منها. Now, the thing is that Allah is saying, if we remove or cancel or abrogate a verse, we bring something like onto it or better than it. Now, the whole point of this is, can God issue a certain ruling and then change it with time? Now, in simple terms, mainstream Muslims, mainstream Islam, of course he can. That is the orthodox position, that Allah does change the rulings in accordance with people, with their developmental changes and so on. So, backing right up, if we take this right back up, we're going to see that each prophet, each messenger was given certain rulings for his own people. Now, that changed with the right, Ben, our Maliki Viking Skål. There you go, Skål, the Viking greeting. Right, so anyway, so this is so we all accept that previous prophets had certain rulings, as it mentions in the Qur'an, that different things, different dietary rulings. Alcohol wasn't prohibited by the general understanding. Some people might try to challenge that, but in the time of Jesus, we don't generally believe, I mean, I don't believe, according to my understanding, that alcohol was abrogated or wine in the time of Jesus, but some people may challenge that. But in other prophets, it definitely, so if you could go back to Adam, you might argue things like, I don't know, incest, right? Was it an issue in the time of Adam with his offspring? And obviously not. So the question is, as rules and as civilization progresses and different societies form and stuff, the rulings change. Now comes Islam, the final messenger of God, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In his time, the Qur'an is revealed, and this is seen as the last testament. Now, does this contain abrogation within it? The majority of Muslims agree that there is abrogation within the Qur'an. So Allah will gradually, He forbade and prohibited certain things. A good example that is often cited is alcohol. That Allah says, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَأَنْتُمْ سُكَارَى. Do not come close to salah if you are intoxicated. In earlier verses, Allah is discouraging alcohol, showing that, you know, that it has a lot of harm. It may have some benefit in alcohol, i.e. trade or health benefits of wine and things like this, but the harm is greater. And then Allah goes on to say that that this has been made haram for you. Okay, now, so the verses prior to that were then abrogated with the final verse. This most Muslims do not have a problem with. It's been challenged, but at a very slight, and I mean there's been one or two differences historically. I believe Abu Muslim al-Asbahani challenged the concept of Naskh. Other than him, most Muslims didn't really, they all accepted abrogation within the Qur'an, although they massively disagreed. My daughters are going crazy over there. Layla, chalo wo darwaza band kar do. Chalo, okay, you can. They wanted to say their quick salams. This is the monster, this one, which when I want to speak about how to exercise jinns, when I want to speak about exercising jinns, right, I'll have to use this one as an example. Although I don't believe in demonic possessions, but this one's had me challenged my thoughts. Can I say? ठीक है?
And I am.
अच्छा, पापा को काम करने दो, ठीक है?
Zara, can I have a phone?
दरवाजा बंद कर, नहीं यहाँ नहीं, दूसरी तरफ से. Try to नहीं. Okay, off you go. Bye. Anyway, getting back to this. So most Muslims accept abrogation, although they massively disagree on the verses that have been abrogated in the Qur'an. They agree on the minor, the key verses like alcohol and things like this, a few incidents on initially not being able to act out in self-defense militarily, and then as in initially not being able to fight back, and then later being granted permission. So they agree on some fundamental verses, as being abrogated in the Qur'an. They disagree beyond that. Beyond that, they have a huge, some people say there's hundreds and hundreds of verses abrogated. Some say there was only about, a dozen or so verses. And you get a lot of scholars have written on this, beginning with Ibn al-Arabi has a book called Naskh al-Mansukh. Ibn Shaheen has a book on the matter. You have many scholars have written on it. Jalaluddin as-Suyuti has written elaboratively. People like Shah Waliullah Dahlawi, contemporary scholars, most Mufassirin cover this. Okay, so that's the summary. Right now, need to drop some Mirpuri lingo with the kids. Yeah, sure. Inshallah. Let's, right, so that's the general understanding of abrogation. Then there are some people who believe that abrogation occurred. So everybody more or less accepts this. Some people then say there's another type of abrogation where a verse used to be in the Qur'an but no longer is in the Qur'an. Okay, so you have some hadith in Sahih Muslim, not from the Prophet, but from some companions and things like this, saying Surah Al-Ahzab used to be longer than this surah. And this surah used to be as long as, almost Baqarah or so on and so forth, but it's not like that. You have some hadith saying there was a verse to do with the stoning and things like this in the Qur'an, and then it was lifted. So you have this belief that there were certain verses that used to exist in the Qur'an. Allah revealed them, but then He made everybody forget them. In my understanding, this is absolutely unacceptable. This is, I believe, to be absurd. I believe it contradicts the essential message of the Qur'an and Islam. You have Sidi Ahmad al-Ghumari has written a book on this as well, where he highlights this to be absurd. I've actually got it here somewhere. It's a small, it's not a large book or anything, but he speaks about this concept and how it's amazing how this managed to creep in to mainstream Islam. I mean, it's shocking. You see, once again, it goes to show that we are human. And the Muslim tradition has done an excellent job in preserving and trying to filter out maybe nonsensical stuff, but they're not gods. Here and there's been something that has always crept in. And people, for some reason, just haven't tackled it, or they haven't considered it to be a big deal to take it on, and they've ignored it. And one of them is this, to say we believe that there was Qur'an that no longer is Qur'an and God made everybody forget it. I think that is as absurd as you can imagine, and I do not accept that. It doesn't matter if there is a hadith that states that, first of all, there's no such thing from the Prophet, but if there are athar, then these things are either fabrications or they are misrepresentations. Okay. So that's something you have to understand. Now there are several hadith where you have, so Jalaluddin as-Suyuti in his Tadrib al-Rawi and other books, you have people bring chains where commentators will say, we used to listen to Abu Hurairah radiallahu an, and when he would finish, he would transmit certain hadith from the Messenger of Allah and certain others from Ka'b al-Ahbar, and when he would finish, we would see some people saying the ones from the Prophet, they would transmit them from Ka'b al-Ahbar, and some from Ka'b they would transmit as though they heard from the Prophet. So people, these things do sometimes happen. This is why there needs to be rigorous kind of analytical thought. And I will highlight what Jalaluddin as-Suyuti brings from Ibn al-Jawzi, who's, we're talking almost 900 years ago, almost, right? So, one of the great scholars of hadith, very stringent, very strict on hadith, and he presents a principle. He says that how do we know when a hadith how do we accept a hadith as sahih once the chain has been connected? He says after that it will be subjected to these three conditions. He says, مَا لَمْ يُبَايِنِ الْمَعْقُولِ, as long as it does not stand out against reason He puts this as number one. It does not stand out against reason. He says, وَلَمْ يُخَالِفِ الْمَنْقُولِ, and it does not clash with authentic texts that have come through and been accepted. And he didn't say, he said manqul, which includes the Qur'an, the accepted Sunnah, and so on. And he says, وَلَمْ يُنَاقِضِ الْأُصُولِ, and he says, and neither does it neither does it go against, in essence, contradict the well-established principles of Islam. So that is three principles to always remember when looking at hadith. But in summary, any of these, the belief that there was part of the Qur'an that used to exist, and what people call mansukh al-Tilawah, that it's no longer found in the Qur'an, it disappeared because God made everybody forget it, is unacceptable. Right. Okay. Could you explain if Abu Talib having accepted Islam is a reliable opinion? The general understanding within mainstream Islam is that Abu Talib didn't embrace Islam. Although I think some people challenged that. I think that that is a minority position. It is the main position according to the Shia. According to within Ahl Sunnah, the mainstream position is he didn't. Whether he did or and then I said I think there's some challenging of that as a minority report. I don't see what the personally my this is my personal opinion. You're asking for my personal opinion. I don't see the big deal in trying to state as a matter of fact either way. You know, this is something we'll never truly know. Maybe he embraced, maybe he didn't. I don't think we should be speaking bad of Abu Talib. You know, he was somebody who the Messenger of Allah was massively indebted to, beyond being his nephew, but he was massively indebted to. He was a great person, Abu Talib was, unquestionably. There's no doubt. And you know, as a human being, he was an amazing human being. So we should have that respect and reverence when speaking about Abu Talib. And although the mainstream position of Ahl Sunnah is that he didn't embrace Islam because he said that I would have said this if I didn't fear what the people of Quraysh would mock me and ridicule me. Now, does that in essence mean I do otherwise accept your message? I mean, I feel there may be some scope for that. There's not, you know, but I don't think it's something to say he definitely was or wasn't. I think we should just leave it. We accept that he was an amazing individual. He was somebody the Prophet dearly loved. And we just show respect and reverence for him. And we hope, inshallah, maybe, I hope that he was, you know, one of those, the people that embraced Islam. And we just leave it at that. So that's my understanding. Okay, so let's see, what else have we got? Okay, people, please check your messages. Saying the time to be checking messages, my man. أو من ينشأ في الحلية وهو في الخصام غير مبين. This ayah of the Qur'an, a lot of people refer to this as saying that is speaking about women, Hamza Imtiaz. Although the direct wording of the Qur'an is referring to the masculine, أو من ينشأ في الحلية وهو في الخصام غير مبين. Some people say that is referring to just women in essence, although I'm not sure, because the actual wording of the Qur'an is general. So I would feel that the verse is more general. أو من ينشأ في الحلية. Now hilya is like adornment. So who is raised in, and you could understand that as kind of like adornment, or kind of like almost even people have said in the past like jewelry and stuff like that. But it doesn't have to mean, it could just mean a sense of adornment. And but they're not so accustomed to the outside world when it comes to arguing and debating and stuff like this. Although a lot of people have said that does refer just specifically to women, because in that time they weren't so accustomed to certain deals of trade and stuff like this, and certain how to handle certain matters. But the wording of the Qur'an is actually general, just to be fair. Were there any scholars that rejected Yajuj and Majuj, Mahdi, Dajjal, their reasoning, justification? I answered this last week, towards the end, the final question actually of last week's session. Look, they are separate matters. Yajuj and Majuj, I'm not sure, I don't think they denied Yajuj or Majuj. They may have disagreed or not truly understood what Yajuj and Majuj were or are, and that's understandable because Allah doesn't make it too clear. Speaks of this Yajuj and Majuj, and that there was this kind of, that they were a problem with Dhul Qarnayn in the Qur'an, and then they were handled. It doesn't give too much clarity, and it's very obscure, that whole those verses. In fact, the whole journey of Dhul Qarnayn is almost quite obscure. I'm sure if you've read it in Arabic, you find the wording thumma atba'a sababan, thumma this, thumma that, and it doesn't really it's not, then he pursued a means. What does that mean exactly? A medium? We don't exactly know. What is Yajuj and Majuj? I don't know. Is it, for example, referring to alien life out there, extraterrestrial life? In my understanding, it could. It doesn't rule it out. I'm not saying it does refer to that. It's not ruled out. It could be. I've always found it interesting that how the Prophet spoke about towards the end of time, there will be Yajuj and Majuj, and how they will be killed off, not through any human effort, but almost through these kind of tiny worms. Almost like how in War of the Worlds the aliens are killed off with human bacteria. Not human, but earthly bacteria. And so I find that interesting. I'm not saying it is, I'm not saying it isn't, but I feel that there may be scope. There are ulama in the past who looked at the Dajjal as generic as well, including Ibn Taymiyyah speaks about it. He says about the individual, but affirms it more as a greater, almost as a narrative as well. He says things which call to deception. I know Abdurrahman al-Sa'di also has a risala expanding on that. And so there are people that have felt that Dajjal was more metaphorical, especially in the last century. And the Mahdi, people like Ibn Khaldun didn't accept. And the second coming of Jesus, I did highlight that in the last session there was this ikhtilaf among several ulama of the last century, beginning with Muhammad Abdu, and mainly the lead scholars of Al-Azhar, people like Sheikh Shaltut, Sheikh Rashid Rida, Sheikh Mustafa Al-Maraghi, Sheikh Abu Zahra, all these, even Ibn Ashur kind of lending in some points of views there and stuff like this. And they all highlighted how these things to do with Dajjal, to do with Isa and the Mahdi were not a part of Iman, Aqidah of the Muslims. They were what Ibn Ashur calls in his Risala Tahqiqat, he calls it Ma'arif Islamiyah, Islamic information. So that's what they were. Okay. As to Dajjal, where the hadith where they say things like no prophet came except he warned against Dajjal, people say that was those who don't accept him to be necessarily a real antichrist, feel that was metaphorical, that they warned against. Either they said Dajjal at some points in some hadith is just referring to the shaitan, to the devil, and in other cases is referring to a greater narrative of deception and a great fitna. That's the interpretation of some people. It's open, it's Islamic information. Whichever way you want to believe is up to you. This is not part of core faith, and I feel that all of these are valid. I feel that there is a difference of opinion in the matter. Alright, let's try to fluctuate between these questions, people. What we've already got here. What have scholars said on using... What have scholars said on using ahad hadith for hudud punishments? I was under the impression that it was just some early Hanafis who used to who refused to use ahad narrations when it came to hudud. However, I recently came across the following statement by Sheikh Mahmoud Shaltut. This is the question. Saying me, right? In case you're wondering, Aqidah wa Sharia, in which he says the majority of scholars are in agreement that the prescribed penalties cannot be established by hadith. That's interesting. That's interesting. I think there's been a difference of opinion. As I spoke earlier on about abrogation, there have been scholars that feel that, and this is what I refer to as a trajectory hermeneutics, that Islam also attached certain rulings for when the society continues to change, those rulings will become haram. And amongst them were things like slavery, amongst them were things like hitting, discipline, domestic disciplinary action, things like this cutting off the hands and stuff like this. And scholars in the past wrote about this. People like the great Maliki legend Abu Qasim al-Burzuli, almost 700 years ago, wrote how in his time all those rulings would no longer apply, and they should be they ought to be substituted, he believed, for financial penalties in his time, but in our time they could be substituted with things like custodial sentences. Okay, so this is all part of the narrative of Islam, trajectory hermeneutics, that the Prophet attaches, and Islam attaches certain rulings with certain developmental changes. So you can see, for example, the Prophet said, I would have wanted the Kaaba to have changed back to its original shape, but your people are still too early in Islam. لولا أن قومك حديث عهد بالإسلام. He said, I would have changed the Kaaba back. And then people after him, when they felt the time was right, did attempt to do that in the time of Abdullah ibn Zubayr, and then they changed it back in the time of later subsequent Bani Umayyah dynasts, and then in the time of Imam Malik they tried to change it back. And because first the Kaaba had, as you know, it wasn't a cube, it was I don't know how to describe that shape, but it's like what's the exact term for it? But it's where you have that wall of the Kaaba today. That was actually part of the Kaaba. So one end was like a cube, but the other end had like a semicircle kind of attached to one end of it. So it was like that. So on one end it was like a semicircle kind of thing, and it had two doors and not one, and the doors weren't actually raised, they were lowered to the floor. That was the original Kaaba which the Prophet wanted, and it used to be like that until it got changed. So you can see that the Prophet attaches certain things in saying that I wish if it were not for this, then I would have done this. And so that is the understanding behind trajectory hermeneutics, people. Trajectory ethics. And Islam mandates that it should reflect the ethics of its age. Right, so come on, where are the more interesting questions, people? What is the status of, shall I take a question from here? Can you outline the procedure for a nikah according to Sunnah? Unfortunately, there isn't or aren't many sources which clearly outline the requirements. Right, so, well, Khalid Hussein, so let's, nikah is a marriage ceremony within Islam, which is very simple. It's been made simple so that relationships could be simple. Obviously today they are not simple. Today relationships, I think, are a nightmare. As will all the other bachelors out there agree. And bachelorettes will agree. So relationships today, unfortunately, are not that simple as they were in the time when the Prophet or Islam delineated the kind of, I don't know, the rites of passage, how to. So it said, look, there should be a kind of understanding, there should be a bond, there should be a contractual bond which preserves the rights of one another. And it's very simple, and a couple can just conduct a nikah between themselves. in essence, I know the procedure normally is they get an Imam Sahib or a Qari Sahib. The Qari, the Qari Sahib is a bit of a feared character in our communities, but they could get an Imam Sahib due to all some of the naughty unfortunate tragedies that they have caused for people in our community. But the thing is, so they could get the Imam Sahib to lead to do a nikah. And all they in essence ask, they just say a basic khutbah, just praising Allah, and then they say, right, I marry you to you in front of everybody here, and there's a mandatory gift called a mahar. Let's say the mahar was I don't know, let's say here this voucher. Now, it shouldn't be like this voucher, but it could be. But I mean, it could be anything. But so let's say for £500, a mandatory gift, or a ring, or I don't know, it could be anything, a necklace, earrings, anything. So mandatory gift. So they say, look, I marry you to you in the presence of everybody here, for this gift. Do you accept? So he would ask, let's say he would now say to the husband, I'm marrying you to so-and-so. Would you accept? Do you accept this? So he says, I accept it, or I have accepted it. Excellent. Says to the woman, I have married you to so-and-so for this gift, this voucher right here. Right. Uh-oh, it's out of date. That would be interesting if the voucher was out of date and then they... Right, so it says, for these cinema tickets right here, right, do you accept this for the cinema? VIP seats, VIP people, that's what I'm talking about. Right, so say, do you accept this? So she says, yes, I have accepted. And then they go, whoa, mabruk, mabruk, excellent people, on, it's great, awesome, have a great time. Right, so that's how simple it was, how it is in Islam. There should be at least 2 witnesses present. That's the standard way. According to the Maliki madhab, even if there ain't 2 witnesses present, if it was done in seclusion, but before they actually decide to move in together, there should be a formal announcement somewhere, whatever the mechanism is. That's according to the Malikis. There should be at least that, or 2 witnesses. Does the parent, the guardian, have to give consent to his daughter to get married? There's a split amongst the schools of law. Some have argued yes, like the Shafi'is and some of the Hanbalis and some of the Malikis, and the Hanafi madhab has stayed very strong in essence on no, the woman is absolutely independent, and some Malikis have taken that line of thought as well, as Ibn Rushd highlights. And that's what I would personally agree with, that the woman does not need consent from her parental figures, although it is recommended, and that is the way she ought to do it, in agreement with people, and that's it, they were married. But in Islam, when these laws were kind of set out, if relationships didn't work out, people just moved on, and they got married here and they got married there, and it was like a relationship. That's all it was. It was, except it had rules and it had rights. Rights is a better word. Now the issue is that, I mean, we've got a whole load of taboo culture. We've got a whole load of things like, so for example, if a girl gets a divorce, people sometimes don't want to marry divorcees, or they don't want to. And there's all sorts, and then there's the marriage is such a big event, people will spend 50, 60, 70,000 pounds on a marriage, and then naturally, if that was to break down in 2 weeks, you will be going through depression, my friend. You'll be like, what the hell? That wasn't worth 70,000 pounds. God damn it. You'll be like, woman, were you worth 70? Right, no, that's a joke, right? Before the feminazis start to attack me. And the thing is that, look, today it's made into such a big deal that if relationships don't work out, people get like, what the hell, why is it not working out? And then there's all this pressure, and then the families are like, oh my god, nahi, hamari izzat chali gayi hai, hamari izzat, our izzah has gone. And so so they will be like, no, you have to make it work. So the thing is now, and you're thinking, well, why are you forcing two people to be together who don't want to be together? They're like, no, but what will people say? Okay, that makes perfect sense, doesn't it? What will people say? I know, so why don't you just live in a sexual relationship with somebody you can't stand? Because what will so-and-so Uncle Fulan have to say about it? Who gives a damn what he has to say about it? I doubt his own relationship is going too well. So this is the scenario that we have today. And then you have, I end up speaking to a lot of people in relation to this, and it's just difficult, challenging times, that's all. Because I think and what doesn't help, you see, this is why I'm not too down with. I am thinking in the future, I'm reluctant, but I'm thinking of doing something like maybe at some point on relationships. But I'm reluctant because I don't have, you see, I'm not too down with what you get some Muslim love gurus. Right, you get some. We've all come across them online. Come on, the one, the one, and basically they've got hold of all of this conference material from other seminars like non-Muslims, and they've just Islamized them, and they've thrown in Islamic stuff, and they draw this very romantic narrative, this Bollywood narrative, which, in itself is I'm sure it's sweet. And it sells. And, love always sells. These kind of things, love, sex, this kind of stuff will always sell. So now, and then they say, but and they'll say things like, and the love, and they say things which are nice, but they're not, but they're ideal. And the problem isn't in having ideals. Ideals are good. You can have ideals. But you should also be realistic. Like, if you're going to set parameters and set the bar at such an ideal level, life ain't going to be like that. And so you're going to hit the mundane, and then it's going to be like, well, this, I thought she, or I thought he was the one, or I thought she was the one, and but we had all these ideals, and this Sahabi was in love for this, till his deathbed. And look, ideals are awesome, but be realistic. That's what I say to people. Be realistic. Let's move on now. Enough of this. Enough of playing Dr. Love. Let's get back to the real, to the other questions. Right, so your views on Mufti Taqi Usmani. Whoa, what a question. Wow. Why would you think I would have anything odd to say about Mufti? Why am I being asked this question? See, Hamza Imtiaz, it's people like you that get me blacklisted. By asking this question, you're presupposing that maybe I may have some negativity towards Mufti Taqi Saab. And I don't. Of course I don't. Mufti Taqi Saab is a great, amazing Mufti, a scholar of our time from the senior global scholarship. He is the teacher of my teachers. In fact, our Grand Mufti who authorized me at the time was one of Mufti Taqi's key students. But that doesn't mean that we have to agree with everything Mufti Taqi, every conclusion Mufti Taqi arrives at. He's a great man, a great, very humble, very, I believe, pious, scholar who has dedicated much of his entire life to, writing and teaching. And he comes from a family, his elder brother, Mufti Rafi, and his father, Mufti Shafi, and all these people. They, have a legacy, and I absolutely am in awe of that. But it doesn't mean that I have to feel bound to his understanding of things. The Mufti Taqi, generally speaking, from the subcontinent perspective, is a bit, from their perspective, as in Pakistan, he's central. He's like in the center. He's not from, given Pakistan. So get rid of our blinkers. Imagine we're in Pakistan. You have their version of the far right and their version of the left. So, and I don't like using these terms to describe Islam, but this is what people, use. So, God damn it, I hate these terms of conservative and liberal when it comes to religion. But let's just say, so you have the easygoing and the hardliners, the harsh scholars. He's in the middle. He's central for that. Given the UK, I don't think he would be in the middle. Given our context, I think he would be more towards the harsher opinions in our context, in the UK. Given a climate like Pakistan, he's spot on, he's in the middle. But given our context, he would, I'm sure he would support and uphold views like women can't travel 48 miles because that's somehow a sin. Obviously, but 47 miles are okay, but 48 ain't. And like these kind of views, he would hold views like a woman cutting her hair is haram and cursed. He would hold opinions like women plucking their eyebrows are cursed. He would hold things like men having their trousers beneath their ankles are sinful and going to be in the hellfire. So, and this is not just him, this is the whole of that Pakistan. Hold these kind of views. So he's just one of them. One of the people from there. So naturally he's going to have all those views. But for Pakistan, he is not harsh. So in Pakistan, you have some nutcases and some harsh people. He's very balanced for Pakistan. So in Pakistan, he's amazing. In the UK, he's not an ideal person for us in the UK necessarily to be taking ruling from, because he's not born and raised in the UK. He's not from the UK. He doesn't claim to be from the UK. He is from Pakistan and he represents Pakistan, which is 7,000 miles that away. Right, so anyway, let's get back to here. So he's an awesome person. Why am I always drinking Pepsi Max? I love Pepsi Max. Come on, people. Why you gotta hate? Why you gotta hate on my drink? God damn it. I mean, look, I actually mix it up, So this is Sprite Zero mixed in with Pepsi Max, and sometimes I mix in some Red Bull sugar-free to kind of get that extra buzz. Let's set up a state. Okay. Are secret marriages permissible? Woo! Nutty, you Imran Munir. Munir, which means to shed light, wants us to shed light on secret marriages. Do you mean by secret like as in they didn't even know that it happened? Which involves like a drink after, shortly after which you're unconscious. And you wake up and you're like, you've got the dulha outfit on, the groom outfit, and it's like a secret. It's already done. It's like, hey, it's just like, surprise, surprise. Like they say, it doesn't count if you shout surprise. So it's like, well, secret marriages. I take it that's not what you mean, Imran. So what you're talking about is marriages which people don't really know about. Now, right, the thing is, I've answered this I tell you what, I've given a lot more detail to this in one of my live Q&As. So it was done in Norwich, and I think I answered it reasonably well there. Okay, so I think if you check that out, it's on YouTube. So it's my Q&A from Norwich, and I'm answering, it's unrestricted, so I'm answering these kind of wacko questions. But look, in essence, the thing is this: you have to be wary of all consequences. Yeah, I don't know what to offer people as a solution. I don't know. I simply, honestly do not know. I think everything, because of our complex time and surroundings, we're just we've failed. Like there is no adequate solution to anything. So telling people to get married at a young age is absurd, because it's just going to lead to ridiculous. They're not mentally mature. But then it's Islamically, you can't just say, well, okay, it's okay to sleep around. Telling people to fast is just don't even give that one, right? Do not. This hadith about fasting was, the Prophet said it to a group of people who'd come, and they were not from Medina, and they were a group of people who I believe had stayed around after the Hajj season, and they were getting up to some. It was obvious what was going on. There was some kind of boisterous behavior, and there was some kind of thing. And the Prophet said, look, those of you who are serious, you're going to get married, or can do so, get married. Those of you who ain't, just fast. And he knew that these people were going to go back. This was not for all people, because that's not going to cut it. Like telling somebody, oh, don't worry about it, just fast. Now he fasts and violates his fast, and now he owes a kafara, and and he's committing all kinds. So anyway, look, let's get back to this point. So I don't know, but secret marriages are not a solution either, because usually this is more so with girls, from the girl side. Not that I'm a girl expert, but as the poet said, what is it? وَإِنِّي بِأَخْبَارِ النِّسَاءِ لَخَبِيرٌ. I'm well versed when it comes to matters of women. But the thing is that it is more so with women, with girls, that they become very, and the guys do as well, but they will become very emotionally involved, and quite rightly so. I'm not saying that, I'm not blaming that, I'm just describing that, that's all. So when you have a secret marriage, which usually is on the basis of some other promises, and then you, I don't know, disappear, it's going to cause it's going to cause a huge emotional breakdown. And then girls, this girl may feel that, I don't know, that look, I've been betrayed, and this may lead to a lack of trust in future relationships, and maybe, God forbid, she gets pregnant, and then how does she go home and answer that, and then she gets disowned, and then this, and then that, and then everybody, look, the whole thing is complicated. So we have to, I don't know, we have to have some wisdom in dealing with these things, okay? And even parents, I was contacted by this parent saying, oh, his daughter had been with somebody and she was pregnant, and now they were just disowning her. I was like, wow, like, did you arrive at that solution on your own? Was that, or, was there like a committee put together to arrive at? Did you personally, wow. I'm thinking, do you mind if I lean in on you as well at times for guidance and like when I have some really difficult conundrums in getting some wise insights? I'm thinking, you retard, what the hell is wrong with you? Right, so here is a girl who's already gone through all this trauma, and now you're just going to disown her because you're saying, oh, she slept with somebody. So you're going to push her back on the streets, where she's going to potentially, just fall victim to further exploitation. And then 5 years later, you're going to say, well, she used to be like this. Well, obviously, so I think everybody just needs to understand that I think Muslims just generally are going through very confusing, challenging times. And everybody that encounters any of these difficulties needs to really have some hilm. Hilm is the word in Arabic. Some kind of it's like a maturity of thought, where you think, it's like deliberation. You think things through. Okay, people, let's take the next question. Right, by the way, before I forget, right, قبل أن أنسى, right, or lest I forget, let me just give a shout out. Shout outs. You know what I should start doing is like those masjid shout outs where they go, Acha Fulan Chaudhry Saab ne 10 pound diye hain, to inke liye duaon ki darkhast. And Fulan, Fulan Saab ne, Haji Saab ne 5 pound diye hain, he's given 5 pounds, to uske liye bhi zarur dua kijiyega. And somebody's given 15 pounds, so don't forget about him. Wow, that is just so anti what the hadith has taught. The sunnah of the Prophet could not be so more removed from that practice we have in Jummahs of like, Acha, Fulan Haji Saab, he gave 15 pounds, can we all make dua for his son who's going through his GCSE exams currently, and Fulan has given 5 pounds, can we make dua that his MOT goes through, Ameen. And Fulan is currently being tried for fraud, deception and armed robbery. Can we all collectively make dua that he gets a unanimous acquittal? Amen. Right, so that's what it's kind of become. So I bet I know who would have done that. OJ. Can you imagine OJ Simpson? He's got like the topi on and he's like, or Fulan, OJ Saab ne 20 pound diye hain. He's given 20 pounds. OJ has, and can we all make dua that the racist LAPD gets slammed and there is an acquittal, God damn it. I gotta say that the series that they've made is awesome. It is incredible. I gotta say, people, it's really got me hooked on this OJ case. I'm trying to figure out, like, you watch one of these series and before you know it, you happen to be running your own parallel inquiry committee on which you happen to have appointed yourself as the lead investigator. So I realized like I'm running my own parallel investigation into the OJ Simpson murder trial. If you haven't seen it, people, it's awesome. It's awesome. It does make me think, I wonder who actually did it. I mean, did he do it? Did his son do it? Was it one of the local accidental killings by the cartels? Was it? I mean, it just doesn't. And why didn't the glove fit? Anyway, first world problems. Right, so let's get back to this. There's going to be a revival retreat, people. That is going to be from the 18th to the 21st of August. You can check it out. It's on Facebook. Sheikh Adam Kelwick, who is a legend. And if you're not following him, follow him. He's a super cool person, man. I met up with him yesterday. He came, blessed my house with a visit from Sheikh Adam. Brought some friends along. We had some awesome discussions for several hours. Really, honestly, loved chatting with him. The thing is that, look, the awesome thing, and I was sharing this with him later on, is that we disagree on sometimes certain perspectives, certain opinions. We discussed things like, and I feel that the Sheikh has no objection in sharing this thought. We discuss things like miracles, for example, within Islam, as an example, and sometimes the ulama have disagreed on how they view things like this. So you have certain, like a camp of people that will be like people like Ibn Ashur, the great Maliki, Don of the last century, and who has a tafsir in 30 volumes, and other people with that trend who always felt that miracles and things like this could always still be explained. They were always things based on reason. And they felt that understanding was, we owe it to Islam to have that understanding. And then there's the other camp that may feel, out of a love and sincerity for Islam, that maybe know that they actually believe in things which go against the laws of nature and science and whatever. And this is out of a love for Islam. And people can disagree, and they can have, like, we had this discussion and it was so amazing. Wallahi, I wish I could have recorded it, and it was on very varying perspectives, and yet, nothing but just further insights, affection, love, respect for the other person. No kind of like this is just understanding that every person is in their own way trying to be sincere to Islam, and that is the awesome message. And I just felt that, wow, this is how people in the past must have discussed things. Truly. Tariq Khan, there's a question. I'll come back to that. Okay, it's about women and some women issues. I'll come back to that. So there is a revival. Sheikh Adam is going to be there. It's a retreat for 2 or 3 days. It will have things like zip wire, archery, swimming, Islamic shops, abseiling. I will be there, people. I think for 2 days. I've got to check with my who manages my events. Is that what I've said? 2 days? But I will be there as well. I think there's other scholars to be confirmed. But if you can pop down to it, pop down to it. It'll be awesome. We'll spend some, whatever it is, the weekend. It's from the 18th to the 21st of August. God damn, where is it? I know it's in the Midlands somewhere, I think. Or is it not? Check it out anyway, people. It's the revivalretreat.co.uk. Sorry, enough of that. But I will look, it'd be great to meet some of you as well in person. And I am thinking of doing a Maliki retreat for just 2 days as well, where we could just kind of chill out and just nothing too large, just a few people, some of the lads, anybody else who wants to come, and just teach a bit about the school of Medina and just have a laugh, inshallah, which we will be having there as well, a laugh. It's in Shropshire. Shukran, Momo. There's Momo, people, our foreign correspondent from Cairo, who happens to be in the Midlands right now. But so Shukran, it'll be in Shropshire. Okay, so right, there was a question there about the women on their menstrual cycle, which isn't a bicycle called the menstrual. Okay, that wasn't a good joke, I get it. So, but on their cycle, monthly cycle, so, right, the thing, so, what does this mean? Now, I want to add some insight here. Can they read the Qur'an? Can they do these things? According to Imam Malik, yes, they can. They can touch the Qur'an, they can read the Qur'an. According to certain understandings from Imam Malik as well, like Muhammad ibn Maslama, and according to Imam Shafi'i, they can go into the masjid and they can do all of these things. And I would like to clarify my understanding on this. My understanding is that women, regardless, they are not impure. Okay, I want to clarify that. Nobody is impure like that. Okay, and I want to come back to non-Muslims as well are not impure, but at this point I want to highlight women are not impure. They have just been given a bonus from Islam. They've been given a kind of like a discretionary a kind of leave, that because they're going through certain physiological tension, they don't have to pray. So they've been given some time off from prayers as a bonus, as a gesture from Allah, as an act, almost like as a charitable act from Allah, as the Prophet said that Inna Allah tasaddaqa alaykum, Allah has given you charity, faqbalu sadaqata, accept His sadaqah, His charity. So they cannot pray, but everything else is normal. They can go into a mosque, they can touch the Qur'an, they are not impure. Okay, and I know there is a common understanding that people feel that women are impure during this time. I do not believe they are impure. Okay, and that I am basing on my understanding of what Imam Malik taught and what certain other scholars have said during the time. So if they were doing Hajj, I believe they can do Tawaf. I believe, and Ibn Taymiyyah said that as well, and I believe so. Basically, they are not impure. Okay, so we need to remove this kind of baggage. I feel that is more cultural. You have in fact, there's a whole episode on this, a series by, I think, the BBC have this, and I think Channel 4 have it as well. But it's where somebody has gone off and studied how certain cultures respond to women on their periods. And in some places, I think in Nepal, they have a menstrual shed. Okay, like a shed, like a cow shed, that they have away from the residence, in which women on their menstruation are sent to the shed, and they just live in the shed for like a week, and they're not allowed out in back. I mean, they're allowed out, but they're not allowed back into the domestic residence. And in some of those places during winter, they've actually died due to things like pneumonia and hypothermia and things like, because it's so cold. I mean, they take blankets, but sometimes it doesn't, and they're not allowed in the house because they're considered impure. And I think this is not what Islam taught. There is not. When the Prophet said, when he was asked about, and the dalil, when Aisha asked, look, and the Prophet said, look, can you help me during, when he was in i'tikaf with his hair? And the Prophet used to braid his hair at times, as did the companions. And she said that, oh, but I'm on my period. She said, you know, and a ha'id. And Aisha said that, radiallahu anha. And the Prophet said, he said, inna haydatak laysat fi yadik. That, you know, your period isn't in your hand. Like, I'm asking you to help me. Like, help me. Like, what's wrong? And she says, okay, oh, I misunderstood that. And so this is and when the Prophet said, la yadkhulu al-ha'id al-masjid, or whatever, these kind of ahadith, this was to do with hygiene of the time, and out of honor of the woman finding herself in an embarrassing predicament. That's all it was. Look, you have to remember, look, people back then, there wasn't even a culture of things like, I'm just saying, of undergarments, of underwear. People never generally wore underwear back then, right? So that, you know, especially in that part of the world. Now, they never used to have, like, I don't know, like, like pads and menstrual kind of, Tampax and tampons and things like these. Things did not exist, okay? These kind of sanitary pads. So now, some women used to tie a cloth and stuff like this historically, but you could imagine if a woman had a gushing cycle that was like a strong cycle, it could just leak, and it would embarrass her sometimes. Like, she would find herself in an embarrassing, and especially if she was in a masjid, right? So you can imagine now, because of this, the Prophet said they should not enter the masjid, out of to kind of safeguard them, not that they're impure. And some people, many people unfortunately, interpreted this over the centuries as being an impurity, and that is not true. Okay, women are, it does not matter, all human beings are pure, right? Imam Malik, in his madhab, life necessitates purity. That is the principle. That is a firmly established principle. Al-hayatu taqtadi at-tahara. All living things by default are pure. Even if it's an animal, even if it's a pig, Imam Malik's fatwa is very clear. It is pure. We're not talking about eating it, we're talking about touching it. It is pure if it touched you. A dog, according to Imam Malik, is pure. I know the other madhabs disagreed with this, but I'm talking to you about the school of Medina. Non-Muslims are pure. And this is something I want to follow on from this. Imam Hassan, ahlan wa sahlan, Ahmad Ali, shukran, all the way from Trinidad. I appreciate it. Right now, so all life necessitates purity. So women, regardless if they're on their menstrual cycle, they are still pure. The sexual kind of guidelines that were given were only, once again, hygienic. Okay, they were given because of stuff like that, and that it may have caused as harm to the women, and even to the husbands it may have caused harm. You have to remember these things, that sometimes you may, if you're intimate with somebody, and let's say there's an odor, I'm just saying, if there is, and you got to remember there were hot countries, it was a desert. It was, there wasn't like, hey, here's a shower, I just jump under the shower, and hey, here's my body spray, yo, where's my Dior Sauvage, spray that on, where's the Chanel? It wasn't like this. So you can imagine that if you were intimate with somebody and you smell a bad odor, these kind of things get locked into the psyche, and some people will know this. I mean, things like bad breath. I mean, bad breath in itself is so shocking. I mean, that's one thing I could never tolerate. But I mean, as an example, this can you? So it would cause resentment. So these are some of the wisdoms behind this. Okay, Nadeem Ashfaq, Shukran man, Imam Hassan, nothing but absolute love. People, Imam Hassan, you need to get involved with his work. He's doing some awesome work. From the town of, don't want to introduce you as from the town of Fred West, but he's from Gloucester, people, and so get involved. So can you have non-Muslim women in the mosque? Of course you can. Can you have non-Muslims in the mosque? Of course you can. Do you need to ask a woman if she's on her period, if she's coming into the mosque? Hell no, people. Don't be so denigrating and humiliating. That's really absurd to ask a woman, are you on your period? That'll be like, it's like the, you know, in the OJ trials, when that, what was her name? Marcia, she's at the supermarket and she picks up the sanitary pads. And the cashier says, oh boy, looks like the defense are going to have a hell of a week. Right, so anyway, now, yeah, so please do not ask women this kind of stuff. It's very denigrating, it's very embarrassing, and I don't think it's not right, okay, to ask people like that. And I understand if you've done this in the past because you've not known any better, but do not avoid these kind of things. Right, okay, next question. What is the traditional procedure for women to get divorced? Whoa, people! Marriage, divorce, marriage, secret marriages, I don't know, all these things. What is going on? What is going on? So, look, there is no traditional procedure. If people want to get divorced, they get divorced. I think people, look, somebody asked here as well, there was a question saying that somebody wants to get divorced and their husband isn't allowing them and stuff like this. Let me make something very clear, right? In Islam, and as your fundamental human right and your right which is enshrined in the faith, okay, nobody can be forced to be in a relationship against their will, especially a sexual relationship. Let's make that very clear, okay? If a wife does not want to be with you, you cannot force her to be with you. You cannot say, well, I'm not going to give the talaq. Well, if you're not going to give the talaq, she can apply for the talaq with an Islamic council, and they will grant the talaq. If a husband wants to leave the relationship, likewise, you cannot force him to be in the relationship. We've got to stop this forcing culture and blackmailing culture, people. This is utterly unacceptable, right? I'm not saying that, you know, people say, well, oh, but that, you know, so, but that just means there's going to be divorces everywhere. Look, relax, stop, you know, scaremongering people. There's not going to be divorces everywhere, okay? People are not just like, oh, I don't want divorce, I don't want divorce. People actually sometimes, many people want their relationships to work. But there are people who you can't, like, they don't want to. How sad could that be? Like, imagine here's a woman, right? Here she is. Hello. Right. This is the time where, right, so she does not want to be in this relationship. How awkward could that be that if, as a person, a guy would say, no, I want you to be in my relationship. You're going to live in the same house as me. And I know this person does not like me. I mean, how low do you have to be to want somebody to live with you, share space with you, share food with you, be with in the same, and you know they don't like you, they resent you. That is just absurd. That is low. Look, grow up, get over it. It's like friendships. Sometimes they work, sometimes people fall out of friendships. Okay, you need to just move on. You need to respect people's rights. They don't want to, you know, if somebody says, I don't want to be your friend, say, no, what do you mean? What do you mean? You don't want to be my friend? You want to be my friend? They say, but I don't want to be your friend. But you're going to be my friend. Yeah, You'll be my friend. That's not how friendships work, people. So you gotta look. I accept it's sad, but it's life. You know, somebody says, but I've been in a relationship for 10 years with this person. But they've decided to move on. Just digest it. Move on. Right? And for any of those people that are stuck, look, they can apply to an Islamic council. It will help them. Okay? So anyway, inshallah. But there's no formal, as to the formal procedure today, they should, I think, go through a formal objective method. They should make a formal application and obtain formal decrees of talaq decrees and stuff like that. Because we're in a day and age of documentation, and these things are needed. Right, let's move on. Next question, people. What is the status of Imam Abu Hanifah in the Maliki madhab? Whoa! What is the status? I mean, right, okay, good question there. Somebody said, what about counselling? Sorry, just to add in there, just so I quickly chime back in on that question. Absolutely, absolutely. Look, I'm all for, you know, counselling, mediations, things like this. These are excellent, but they shouldn't be force. That's what I'm saying. They shouldn't be blackmailing people to be in a relationship. Look, somebody could say, look, we've got a lot of problems. They could say, look, I don't know, we're not seeing eye to eye anymore. You know, we've got some resentment. And they could, you know, maybe they're both thinking that, look, if this could work, we would want it to work. Then in that case, there's several strategies. How about some space? Get some space between yourselves. Separate for a while. You know, do your own thing. Do your own thing. Things like maybe, you know, like see each other occasionally. Dating people, dating other people. I'm not saying dating other people. I'm saying amongst yourselves. Maybe see each other occasionally. Maybe do things. Maybe try to, you know, if you've got some issues, maybe counselling, maybe mediation. You know, these kind of things. Okay, so just to put that out there, okay? So I'm not saying don't try these things, but what I'm trying to say is you can't. What doesn't work is, well, you're stuck. Well, the only time you're going to leave is when I tell you you can leave. That attitude ain't going to work. Okay. Let's make that clear. That ain't going to work. Okay. You're not going to force somebody. But yeah, by all means, if it can work, work it. Right. So, okay. Is a civil divorce valid Islamically? The general understanding is no, these are separate entities. But it could be confirmed by the husband if he did intend by that a talaq, but by default no. But like I said, if they do apply for an Islamic talaq, they will be granted it, inshallah. Okay, well, let's move on. Why do some people think, Amit Rashid, why do some people think someone is a non-Muslim if he or she doesn't pray? That's not true. Most Muslims, I would actually think, I know some people are shocked, but I would actually think maybe 90% of the Muslim world does not actually pray 5 times a day. That's what I would think. That is my understanding. So you couldn't declare them non-Muslim. That's not true. The hadith which were there to say that the thing between us, the covenant between us and disbelief is salah, whoever leaves it as disbelief, was just to emphasize the importance of salah. And that's what Imam Malik, Imam Abu Hanifah, Imam Shafi'i, all these people said. They said there's a hadith which is in Sahih Muslim that on the day of judgment a person will come before God. He will not have a single ounce, not an atom's weight, mithqalu dharra, not an atom's weight of a good deed. And the hadith says, فَهُوَ فِي مَشِيئَةِ اللَّهِ. He is up to the grace of God. If he wants, he can forgive him. If he wants, he can take him to task and punish him. So it does not mean he's a kafir, because if he's not got an atom's weight, then he hasn't been praying either. So just to clarify, yeah, that's not true, people. Right? Let's get... Right, so Imam Abu Hanifah has an awesome status according to the Maliki madhab. They love and adore him. They respect, all madhabs respect each other like that. The imams then definitely respect the imams. They had, I think, they had a similar way of thinking. I think Imam Abu Hanifah and Imam Malik, they both thought in terms of welfare. They both thought in terms of universals. They both recognized that the message of Islam, the greater message, had more importance than particulars. I think maybe Imam Malik placed more emphasis on where you can move away from a text based on welfare, and I think Imam Malik may have placed slightly more emphasis on cultural input and stuff like this, but they both did in general. I say this at times, and I think sometimes the Hanafiya might get offended, but I fear that, I mean, this is my analysis, that over time, both madhabs have been attempted to have been hijacked. But I think the hijacking, to turn it into a very institutionalized, control freak school of law, which controls everybody. But I fear that, but with the Maliki madhab, I don't think it was a successful attempt. I think maybe it became like there was still a strong free spirit, even if it was like a 60-40, you know, even if at times it got to 70-30, 50-50, it was never 100% dominated by a control freak spirit. But over the centuries, I fear the Hanafi madhab did get hijacked almost in its entirety, or if not in an overwhelming sense, at least to maybe 95%, I would feel, of the madhab has been hijacked by a very control freak mentality. And so they don't allow you any freedoms or anything. They don't allow you to, they condemn critical thought, stuff like this, which I think is against the spirit of what Imam Abu Hanifah taught. How do we as Muslims approach the concept of problem of evil? If God is so good, why do kids die from cancer? Mudathir's question there, that's a very serious question, and I've answered this before, that look, these things, this is not from God. Okay, cancer, these kind of tragedies, what we call natural evil, people call them natural evils. I don't know if it is necessarily always an evil, like an earthquake or disease or stuff like this. This is the laws of science and nature at play, with choices over throughout human history. So cancer, let's take cancer as an example. Cancer is the malreproduction of of human cells, of cellular malreproduction. This may have its roots in genetics, so it may be that there were certain dormant kind of alleles and stuff like this, which were more, and they became active, they were more susceptible to corruption in their reproduction. Or it could be due to like what they call epigenetic factors, that you were exposed to certain rays, which, like, let's say, I don't know, I'm just saying, like X-rays or certain radioactive waves, which triggered malreproduction of the cells. Or it could be both. It could be that, for example, 100 people were exposed to something, or you ate certain foods which were carcinogenic, but 100 people ate them, but because 4 of them, they had their genetic makeup wasn't as resistant, so it resulted in cellular malreproduction. Why you got those genes was because your parents, whose parents met, maybe they developed them over. This is not God doing this to you. This is the laws of nature playing out. And why does God allow cells to reproduce? Because it's important for human life that cells reproduce. We have to reproduce all the time. Given the fact that they are billions and billions of cells reproducing, the malreproduction will always be a possible contingency. So, this is just possible. And given all these facts, this is not God doing this to us. We have to understand this. And unfortunately, many Muslims have taken the path of what was previous priests in blaming God for these, what they call evils. And I think that is a disservice to God. They say, oh, well, God caused cancer. And then they give like ridiculous kind of, what I find absurd interpretations, like saying, well, God's doing it to test. And you think, well, Why is it to test a kid? You say, well, you know, oh, well, because of this kid, it's the greater good because now they're going to discover a cure for cancer. You think, for God's sake, are you for real? I mean, what, a kid got, you know, like they could have just discovered, I mean, they could, why this kid being used as a pawn by God, who is the most wise, the most, you know, learned, the most powerful? That's not how it works. Okay, so this is cellular malreproduction. That's what it is. It is not God. We have to stop blaming God. So when earthquakes happen, yes, they are a tragedy, but they are the tectonic plates which are shifting, and they've been doing this throughout geological history. You may not have, but your ancestors chose to come and settle down in this place. Now, as a byproduct, when the tectonic shift took place, you unfortunately, or this person unfortunately, as a tragedy, got caught up in that natural disaster. That's what it is. It's a disaster. It is not God. Okay, we need to stop pinning this on God. Like we pin all the evil stuff on God. It's just unfair. We have like a very, like a bad representation of God. Like we're doing a disservice, wallahi, to Allah. Because this is... Because on one hand, we say humans have free will. Oh, yeah, they have free will. Yeah, they did this themselves. Oh, yeah, you did all this yourself. Oh, but the evil, God caused that. God caused cancer. It's like, what the hell? Why God now? I mean, you know, why God now? Like, so I give you an example. Let's say people are discoveries. Let's say we discover a vaccine. We don't say, hey, God discovered this vaccine. Or even Muslims, we could, you know, because many of us seem to have taken the footstep of priests, Christian priests in this interpretation. Let's say we say, oh, Muslims were the first to discover how the optic lens works. Why don't we say, God was the first to do this? You see, so when it's something good, we easily take the credit. Oh, no, we did it. What are you talking about? God damn it. We did that. Muslims were the first to create the camera. Oh, but didn't God create? No. We did it. Yaar. Kamal karte ho, yaar. We did it, yaar. Upon. We did it. So it's like, Muslims were the first to, you know, use certain kind of surgical procedures. Do you mean God? No, we did it. Right, this bechara poor child has, you know, and may anybody who is suffering, may Allah grant them a swift recovery, we pray. But you know, this poor person who's suffering from this disease, oh no, that's God. God did that. That's God. Oh, why would God? Oh, it's a test. It's a test. Duh, it's a test. You know, don't worry about it, man. Don't worry about it, bro. You're going to die, but on the bright side, there's many nurses and doctors who've got a job because of you. I mean, how absurd is that? Yeah, thanks. That doesn't help me. But on the bright side, it's a test. Okay. Could I not just take the test without this? So I think, look, we need to stop. Destiny is something, it's a complicated topic, which I think in the past, nobody provided an adequate response for. But I do believe, and I believe that this is the Islamic teaching, and this is certainly the narrative of the Qur'an, that human beings have free will. Creatures have free will. That's what I teach everybody, okay? And that's what the Qur'an teaches. It addresses us as active agents. It doesn't say, hey people, you know, I'm just saying this, but Allah says, hey, stay away from this, don't do this, please do this. Why is He saying this if we're just forced? Then He just say, hey, watch, you know, don't worry about it. I've already decided what's going to happen to you. And it's like, you're definitely going to find out. This Abu Layth, Mufti Abu Layth, you're definitely going to find out. You know, so the thing is that Allah addresses us as active agents, like please don't do this, or do this, or strive to do this, struggle to do this. Why don't you believe? Why don't you do this? Do you not look at this? Do you not? This is what the Qur'an is saying, and that's what I'm teaching, that we have free will. Okay, and I think today we are closer to understanding things like destiny. Closer, we haven't fully understood it. Closer by understanding things like quantum physics. I advise everybody to watch things like the quantum eraser experiment, which shows how at a quantum world the observer effect rewrites history, and that's actually testable data. So this shows that sometimes our choices redefine things immediately, and that's what I think is going on. That we are like in a game, a computer game. The whole game's been designed already by God, but our choices, where we get to in this game, is up to us. How well we play it, whether we clock the game or get to level, I don't know, 7 or level 3, or is up to us. That's my understanding. Okay, people, let's take some more questions. Who wants to learn another perspective of Islam, ISIS? Oh my God, is this guy Aram back? Wow, I must have blocked 2 profiles of the guy last week, and he's come back already. Shukran Sham, he still didn't allow the, but didn't God allow the possibility of malfunctioning? Yes, Farhan, that is a good point. Why does God allow? It's not God allows, because the thing is, there has to be, for evolution and adaptation to occur over the whole thing, there has to be the plausibility of malreproduction. Things have to change to adapt. And that will be something that stays in the DNA. But it happens so slightly given the whole scenario. So, yes, that is true. Right. But nature is created, and Allah could create nature perfect. Look, Allah could create nature perfect, but then it couldn't adapt and evolve. Right, so, right, are you pregnant, Tawfiq? Right, okay, let me just block that person. But but if you must know, Tawfiq, no, I'm not. So it's good news, huh? Were you hoping that I was? Were you hoping that this, that this bromance may have had some fruits? But by the way, that's not how it works. You don't troll somebody and they become pregnant. just so you know that, okay? My views on somebody asked a quick question. I'll come back to this, my views on the Saudi thing. Somebody asked a quick question on how do we deal with fatal illnesses. Look, we understand that it's complex, but we try to get the best possible treatment that we can. This is why I've said this before. I've got a whole video, and I don't believe in stuff like demonic possessions, in demons possessing people. But we need to get treatment for people, and sometimes our science and medicine hasn't developed and evolved to that level, and sometimes it has. So if it has, alhamdulillah, and if it hasn't, and we pray, we make look, can God intervene is an intricate question. I believe that there can be divine intervention, but not when you're observing it. Like, I'm watching this, God turn this into... But I think it's a complicated question, right? Somebody asked a question last week, and I think it's worth answering. They said, do you think God created the universe and turned his back on it? Absolutely not. I do not believe that. And I understand how you can end up believing that. Because I believe Allah created laws of nature, laws of physics that would unfold. So why then would he be bothered with this tiny speck of a planet and its people? I could be led into such a belief that why would he be bothered? if it were not for the verse of the Qur'an which saves me from falling into such despair, and that is, Allah says, وَلَيْسَ كَمِثْلِهِ شَيْءٍ. You see, yes, if we created something so tiny, we wouldn't be bothered about it. But Allah, there is nothing like unto Him. You can't understand the true benevolent nature of Allah and how He is still involved with His creation. Like, we can't grasp it, but we just have to accept it. Okay, so that's that. Right, okay, whilst we're on this topic, I'd like to say that since there's quite a few questions, I've seen a few videos, people going around, people trying to argue the existence of God, the proof of God. They're saying that, look, God exists, here's the proof, here's a proof for the existence of God. Look, guys, there isn't categorical data or proof for the existence of God. Okay, if there was, then it wouldn't be faith. But there's arguments for the existence of God. I accept that, right? Right, the Robert O'Brien, Islam is a cult. Islam is not a cult. It is a fascist ideology full of hate. It is not, but there are some nutcases who manipulate it to represent it in such a way. It states for Muslims not to be friends with Jews or Christians. Robert O'Brien, you see, now that is a misrepresentation of a verse of the Qur'an. The verse of the Qur'an being that وَلَا تَتَّخِذُوا الْيَهُودَ وَالنَّصَارَ أَوْلِيَاءَ. Now this is not, it's nothing to do with friends. It is not, that is a wrong translation. A wali can, yes, at a very, first of all, the Arabic word for friend is sadiq or khalil, or, you know, it's rafiq, or it's not wali. Wali is a protectorate, a protection, somebody that is offering that kind of overall protection. And this was given to the Muslims at a time when they were being taught, do not become independent. Do not grow under the protection of other religions. Be independent. How do we know this? How do we know this? Because Allah Himself says in the Qur'an that you can marry Jews and Christians. Allah Himself says, وَلَا يَنْهَاكُمُ اللَّهُ عَنِ الَّذِينَ that لَمْ يُخْرِجُوكُم مِّن دِيَارِكُمْ وَلَمْ يُقَاتِلُوا. Allah is not forbidding you to, for those against those who did not fight against you and those who did not expel you from your homes, أَن تَبَرُّوهُمْ, that you should be kind and good to them. That is a higher level. A bir is higher. وَأَن تُقْسِطُوا إِلَيْهِ, and that you should be just towards them. That إِنَّ اللَّهَ يُحِبُّ الْمُقْسِطِينَ, Allah loves those who are just. God loves those who are just. So look, I understand that and believe me, you know, when I say this, it hurts me and it bothers me much more than it bothers you. That these nutcases have distorted the face of Islam. It hurts me more because it breaks my heart, because I then am casted into this view of people who hate, and I have zero time for hate. I'm all about the love. I'm all about the love, people. So let, you know, just to clarify that, I understand this is out there, but it is not a true representation. But it is like, look, let me give you an example. You might say, well, why don't Muslims remove those verses from the Qur'an? Why don't they remove these things? It's not as easy as that. A part of, besides it being a historical description of events that took place and therefore important to preserve as historical a kind of sanctuary for Muslims. But put that aside, even if this was pure loving and pure rational, let's take a look at the American Bill of Rights and Constitution, which is all, and the Geneva Code, which is all about preservation of human rights. And the Geneva Code, and you know, for human rights, and something which all Muslims and all human beings thoroughly should respect. Yet you can see things like the Bush administration finding ways to circumvent that, to say, well, certain detainees will no longer, under the Human Bill of Rights and the Geneva Code and the American Written Constitution and the federal law, which stands for justice and human welfare, under that, they can still find a loophole to support their crazy and sociopathic war on terror, as Noam Chomsky has highlighted. Look, so people can do that even today with any writing. If I'm a bad person, I can twist anything. You give me a love poem written by a hippie, and I can turn that into my manifesto for a declaration of war. That is the ingenuity of the human mind that can be used for good or bad. So I think, look, let's not. We have to be just. We have to be just. Okay. So let's get back to this question. Somebody asking about my haircut. It's from Dino's People, which is on Bosley Green in Birmingham. If you go there, backs your man, tell him he'll hook you up, inshallah. Do you believe the world will be under Sharia one day? I do not believe the world will be under Sharia one day, people. J. Hamilton. I do not believe that, okay? Because Islam, if God says in the Qur'an, if He wanted everybody to believe, they would just believe. And what is Sharia anyway? People today, there's a misunderstanding of what Sharia is. Some people have concocted a kind of fantasy to console the fact that Muslims and people, yes, unquestionably, when you look through the world, there is a lot of suffering today. Fact. When you look through the world, a lot of, not all, but a lot of who fall under the suffering happen to be Muslims. Fact. Right? So we need to do something to kind of mitigate these losses. So what some people have done is to console this. They've come up with a fantasy kind of, look, don't worry, it'll all be okay. It will all be okay when the world is under Sharia. If the Sharia was here, it would all be okay. Look, it's not that Sharia, nobody even understands what that means, because Sharia just means Islamic understandings, Islamic fiqh, which there's plenty of different schools of law who hardly, in most matters, all disagree. And they agree to disagree. So, not on any steads, my brother Abnan, I'm not on any steads. So this thing of a caliphate is a fantasy. As Sheikh Hamza Yusuf said, there is zero obligation in Islam to set up a caliphate Islamic state. Okay, anybody who's telling you that may be genuine, but they're either misguided or deluded, or they're just sincere but misled. That is nothing that is not what Islam has taught. So, okay, let's get back to some of these people. Let's get back. Is it allowed for taxi drivers to bring people to festivals? All right. Somebody's been to Glastonbury. So, and nightclubs, or do they share in this? Sin. Goddamn sin. How would the world be? El mundo sin. See, sin in Espanol, in Spanish, means without. Okay. So how would it be sin without sin? This sin, look, the thing is this. We have to stop obsessing on other people. People have freedoms. They're not Muslims. What the hell's wrong with you? Let them live their life. You are not sinful if you pick people up from a nightclub, or if they're going to a nightclub to drop them off. You are just doing your job. They, in their way of life, are entitled to go to nightclubs. They are entitled to go to bars. Ibn Ashur, the legend of the last century, the Grand Mufti of the Malikiya and of Tunis as a state in the 50s and 60s. He has a commentary on the Qur'an in 30 volumes up there, and who was one of the teachers of my teacher. respected scholar. He writes, look, he says that what we consider immoral in Islam is not immoral for non-Muslims. He says alcohol is not immoral for them because they are not Muslims. He writes, if your parents were non-Muslims and drank alcohol regularly and had a dependency on alcohol almost, it is your Ibn Ashur is saying this, it is your obligation to provide them the funds, right, as their child to buy their alcohol. He says, لِأَنَّ مَا هُوَ مُنْكَرٌ لَنَا لَيْسَ بِمُنْكَرٍ لَهُمْ. What is munkar for us is not munkar for them. It is not an obligation for them. So look, they go to, look, if you were a non-Muslim, wouldn't you be going to a nightclub and chilling out? Hell yeah, you would. So wouldn't you be doing these things? You would. Why wouldn't you? Because you're not Muslim, you know, that's your way of life. When Imam Malik is asked about those people who are committing incest, they're marrying their mothers and daughters and sisters because they were the Zoroastrians of his time, they did this. He's asked, we've got the authority, we rule over them. Those who want an Islamic governance, Imam Malik was an authority. They said, should we force them, should we stop this? It's under our control. Imam Malik said, no. He said, if that's their way of life, that's their way of life. He said, "Wa deenuhum," it's their deen. Inna Allah aqarra lana ma huwa akbar min dhalik. Allah teaches us to tolerate those who say that, not those people, obviously the people, but those views which say that he has partners and he has a son and he has a whatever, he has multiple one. Allah teaches us to tolerate that. So what about things like incest, if it's their way of life? If homosexuality is their way of life? If people want to go tonight, they do this. If they call you and you're a taxi or an Uber driver, you get there, you drop them. If you don't want to do it, don't do it. I'm not telling you you have to do it, but don't guilt trip people. You have no right to guilt trip others. Right, many Muslims treat the number 786 as sacred. Hell yeah, Saat soche aasi, jis dil ko de sahara. We've all watched that Bollywood movie. Come on, what was it called, man? With I'm sure it had Jackie Shroff in it. Was it Jackie Shroff? Who was it? Who has the? Or was it? Am I mixing up the Amitabh Bachchan movie? Because there's a few where he has the pacemaker and he has 786 on the pacemaker and it saves him. Hell yeah. Kulli. Was it Kulli? Was it Kulli or was it... I thought it was a Jackie Shroff movie. No? I must be mixing them up. This is from my childhood, as you can see. My childhood was obviously a traumatizing experience. But it explains why I am the way I am today, people. I was just never hugged as a child, that's all. apart from by the Qari Sahib, and that just caused more problems. Right, so anyway, right, so the thing is now, somebody's saying, where am I from? I'm from Birmingham, UK, Birmingham, Bromtown, people, Bromtown. So now 786, what it is that Muslims in the past, Arabic in the past, the letters correlated to numbers. Okay, so you had, and you can write it out. So the way they wrote the alphabet was with these letters, right? Abjad. They never wrote alif, ba, ta, tha, jim, ha like this today. Like when we say A, B, C, D, the way we refer to Roman numericals to kind of enumerate, Roman letters to enumerate numbers, like X for 10 and V for 5. So the Arabs had a similar thing with letters, and they would count them out as Abjad, Hawaz, Hutti, Kaliman, Sa'fas, Karishat, Thakhaz, Badhag. Alright, people, that's what I'm talking about. God damn it, I must have learned that so many years ago. Now, if you write them out the way I just said them, Abjad, Hawaz, Hutti, Kaliman, Sa'fas, Qarishat, Thakhaz, Badhag, right? Each one of those letters, and then you go 1, 2, 3 to 10, and then in 20s, and then you go on in hundreds, whatever. So what happens then, you get the word Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, you break it down, and you get, so ba will mean, so ba will be add up to the number 2, so abjad, alif ba, so it would be, and like this you add them up, it would add up to 786. But there's actually a controversy, because it adds up to 786 if you don't include the alif in the word Rahman. If you do, it adds up to 787. Well, anyway, that's to upset the Bollywood movie on that. So, and because in India they're so big on numerology and numbers, so it obviously got really big. Tekken character, I don't know, I've never played Tekken. I've got an arcade machine and I'm pretty sure it's got Tekken on it. I gotta check it out, inshallah. See, I'm a bit retro. I had to get an arcade machine, god damn it. See, that's that's what I'm talking. I put it on my Snapchat. If you haven't seen it, if you haven't got me on Snap, you can add me, Malm 2014 MALM 2014. Right, people. Right, somebody asked a question last week. Oh, right. Look at that, people. Oh, god damn, the joints, huh? Old age, huh? Right, so, I tell you, honestly, oh my god, I had this little party for the menace Zara. So she turned 3 just recently. So we got all these kids around, and we had this bouncing castle. And boy, I forgot how fun it is to jump up and down on a bouncing castle. I must have jumped up and down on that castle for about an hour and a half. Honestly, I didn't realize how much energy it needs, man. It's so tiring. I was doing all these flips on it and jumping and flying kicks, and it was so fun. Bloody hell. I was like, I want to do this every day or every other day, but I need an excuse, because as a grown man, you can't just be jumping around. Anyway, right, so I'll put some of that up on Snap, and I'll put it up on Facebook when I'm jumping up and down on there. But, right, last week I had this question on statues. Somebody who works as a teacher, and they do, I think they kind of make statues or something, I don't know, something like this, or some kind of class that they offer. And is this haram? Haram! Haram! People, haram! Have I got anything to overdo the haramness? No, I've got nothing around me. Damn. I know. Where's the sword? Where's my sword gone? I've got a sword here somewhere. Right, so haram, god damn it, right now. So is this haram, making idols, or something that is 3D? Now look, people. Mazari, is that Mazari is in the house, people? Nate. Right, so he's one of the local lads, local Malikiya, right? So is it haram to make statues? Now what people commonly, let me tell you what people commonly think, right? People think, where's my sword? It's not the sword is one of those monumental swords. It's like one of those as a display item, god damn it. It's not like I do anything apart from, huh? I mean, why would I have a body buried in my garden? Huh? Right, so relax, people. I'm not a psychopath, right? So it's just a display thing somewhere. I don't even know where it is, but it's somewhere. I've got one somewhere. Right, so anyway, right now, so here's what a lot of people think. A lot of people think that it's haram in Islam. Some people, to even have photographs or have pictures of people, and definitely to have figurines or statues or idols. Now, as a result of this, and they think it's haram to draw, so to draw something is haram according to them. So this is why those of you who learn Arabic from the Medina Arabic books, right, you'll probably remember that They used to have these characters in there who were decapitated. I mean, I remember seeing that when I learned Arabic and thinking, what the hell is that? Like, why the hell have these characters... So there's two people having a conversation like, Assalamu alaikum. وعليكم السلام كيف الحال أنا بخير هل أنت تريد أن تذهب إلى المدرسة لا أنا مريض اليوم and they're having this conversation but they haven't got heads. It's like they got a neck and their head is cut off. It's like, what the hell is that? People, are you bringing up your kids with this kind of nonsense? Right? So anyway, you've got that view. Then you've got other, which is absurd, because the hadith mentions, which is a sahih hadith, illa raqman fi thawb, except something which was a drawing on a garment. So Freddy Krueger wrote the book. Hell yeah, Freddy. God, I gotta say, Freddy was freaky as a kid. Oh my God, I was totally freaked out after watching some of the Nightmare on Elm Street. Those days were different, huh? Those horror movies, huh? Halloween, Michael Myers. That music, that kind of like Halloween music, that Michael Myers music was always so freaky, I swear. I was thinking I should get that as a ringtone. It just freaked the hell out of myself though if I'm on my own. Oh damn, this bloody Michael Myers here. Or then you're just like, I remember as a kid always, like when I used to go down in the middle of the night, like go home, like let's say I'm going somewhere to the kitchen or something, I used to always think, damn, is somebody behind the door? Like you're gonna close the door and Michael Myers is standing there with that white face. Anyway, right. God, they were something else though, those characters. Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger. But I digress, people, I digress. Coming back to the more important things. So, putting that aside, that argument is absurd. These people, they use this hadith, أَشَدُّ النَّاسِ عَذَابًا يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ الْمُصَوِّرُونَ, which is in Bukhari, that the worst of those to be punished in the afterlife, those who are the musawwirun. So because musawwir can also mean photography, so people say that, oh, photography is haram, which is absurd, right? So, okay, put all these arguments aside. So then there seems to be a lot of people who hold the view that, okay, that's all fine, but statues are haram and forbidden, and figurines. Look, people, this is not true. This is not true. Now, there has been a systematic effort over the centuries to drown out the dissent, so you don't even hear about it. But it's not true. Somebody just asked me who's my favorite Transformer character. I wasn't really too much into Transformers. As a kid, I think there used to be, what was there? There was Thundercats, and there was, God, look at that. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and God knows. But anyway, people, let's get back to this. So, this is not true. There have been people who have massively dissented on this issue. People in the past, some Malikis, Ibn al-Faras in his Ahkam of the Qur'an. There's people, Makki, Ibn Abi Talib, right, the Maliki, he highlights this difference. Alusi brings it from them, this transmission, that this was to do with early Islam. Because people used to worship statues back then. Okay, they used to, so they had just come out of this. So the Prophet was very strict on not having idols. Otherwise, they had figurines. Aisha, right, who was a girl in her late teens, had figurine dolls and things like this. People had these statues. But there was a fear, because these people were so into idolatry, that this is why the Prophet condemned this. How else do I know? Look, people like the 8th century Maliki legend, Abu Abbas al-Qarafi, known as al-Qarafi or Shihabuddin al-Qarafi, who has many books. He has one book called The Reservoir, the Dhakhira in Maliki fiqh. And he's written books on usul and all these other things. He actually highlights how he was a major. He used to create figures, and he was an expert at creating these little kind of dummy figures. And he speaks about in his time. In fact, I actually obtained this to read it. I don't know if I've still got it here. I'll try to bring it up. But in his time, there were people who had created what they called shamadan. these things with these wax figures on there, and they were used as clocks. And some of them were so good that they would do, these figures would do different things. Like, so at such a time, this would happen. You know, like you get the kind of like cuckoo clocks coming out and going, I don't know, cuckoo, whatever, making certain sounds and doing this and doing. So they had these in this shamadan, shama, which means wax, and this is from Farsi, like the holder of these, right? That they would do all these different stunts, and these were then made as gifts for like royalty and aristocrats and stuff like this. And Qarafi was a genius at making these. So he actually speaks about his own, and he speaks about rivaling some of the top people in his time. And I actually got hold of this. I'll see if I can still get this here. One moment. Right, okay, here it is. I'll read this out. So he's speaking about these aren't the clocks I have, but you know, in the past, like, I don't know, you've seen in movies or on, you know, you have these clocks, the cuckoo kind of, with the kind of bird comes out and goes, makes the sound that it's every o'clock and it does stuff. So like this, obviously today we've got electronic digital clocks. People, clocks, watches. Look at that, people. Let me show off my my new watch. Clocks, right? So the thing is, but in the past, this is in his time, so we're talking almost 600 to 700 years ago, right? And this is a Maliki legend, and he says, look, وَكَذَلِكَ بَلَغَنِي, and this is transmitted from his Kitab al-Nafa'is al-Usul, which is a book on Usul. He ends up talking about his time. And he says, وَكَذَلِكَ بَلَغَنِي أَنَّ الْمَلِكَ الْكَامِلِ وُضِعَ لَهُ شَمَعْدَانِ. And he says that this king, he had this shamadan, this particular shamadan. كُلَّمَا مَضَى مِنَ اللَّيْلِ سَاعَةً انْفَتَحَ بَابٌ مِنْهُ. That every time 1 hour, but this is their hour. Their hours may not correlate exactly to our 24 hours, but 700 years ago, how they understood, like they used to call it an hour as well, but a portion of the day. It says, كُلَّمَا مَضَى مِنَ اللَّيْلِ سَاعَةً. Every time an hour went past, a door would open. وَخَرَجَ مِنْهُ شَخْصٌ. And an idol, like this character would emerge. يَقِفُ فِي خِدْمَةِ السُّلْطَانِ. Who would emerge like in a humble kind of like posture. And he says, فَإِذَا انْقَضَتْ عَشْرُ سَاعَةٍ. When 10 hours would go by, طَلَعَ شَخْصٌ عَلَى أَعْلَى الشَّمَدَانِ. That when 10 of these, and remember, hours aren't like 60 minutes, but their hours would go by, a character or an idol would emerge on the top of this whole shamadan, and he would say, Sabbah Allahu Sultan, long live the king, bis-sa'ada, that may God make the king forever happy. He would say this. There would be sound. فَيُعْلَمْ أَنَّ الْفَجْرَ قَدْ طَلَعَ. That 10th hour would occur as with dawn, so they would know that it's Fajr has happened. He says, check this out. وَعَمِلْتُ أَنَا هَذَا الشَّمْعَدَانِ. He says, I made one just like that, a replica of this. وَزِدْتُ فِيهِ. And I increased, check this out, his expertise, people, engineer, this is. I increased in it, أَنَّ الشَّمْعَ يَتَغَيَّرْ لَوْنُهَا فِي كُلِّ سَاعَةٍ. These idols, their color would change with the passing of each portion of the day. With each hour going by, their color would change. وَفِيهِ أَسَدٌ. And there would be a lion as well. تَتَغَيَّرُ عَيْنَاهُ مِنَ السَّوَادِ الشَّدِيدِ إِلَى الْبَيَاضِ الشَّدِيدِ. The lion that he would have, his colors, his eyes would go from black to white as the hours of the day would pass. And then إِلَى الْخُمْرَ الشَّدِيدِ. And then to red they would turn. فِي كُلِّ سَاعَةٍ لَهُمَا لَوْعَانِ. As every portion would go by of the day, he would have two different eye colors would change for the lion that he had in this whole big massive clock which he created with idols. He says فَيُعْرَفُ التَّنْبِيهِ فِي كُلِّ سَاعَةٍ. So we could know when each hour has gone by. وَتَسْقُطُ حَسَاتًا مِنْ طَائِرَةً. And he said, I placed two birds that would drop, two pebbles with each with each hour that would go by, and one person would go in and another person would go out, and a door would open and a door would close, and when it was dawn, somebody would come out at the top with his fingers in his ears. The person would come out like this as though he's about to do the adhan. He says, Qarafi says, I created all of that, these idols, except, he says, غَيْرَ عَنِّي عَجِزْتُ عَنْ صُنْعَةِ الْكَلَامِ. He says, I could not figure out how they created the vocals. He says, all this I mastered, but I couldn't do that. And he says, وَصَنَعْتُ سُورَةَ حَيَوَانٍ, and I created many creatures, يَمْشِي وَيَلْتَفِتْ يَمِينًا وَشِمَالًا, that they would move and they could look left and right, except, he says, and they could produce a whistling sound, but I couldn't get them to produce vocals. This is Qarafi, who is a Maliki don and a legend, a scholar who has many works and legal rulings. He himself produced these kind of these idol figurines and statues, and this is not haram, people. Okay, I'm just trying to say that ruling was only because people were early in Islam. Okay, guys, with that, I think it's been a hell of a day. Right, we've gone almost 2 hours, people. So somebody said, is Allah sitting on the throne? Come on, I've answered this in the previous session. You can check it there. No, I do not believe in things like that, but I've answered that before. Can you draw living creatures? Of course you can. Of course you can. You can even create the figurines as Qarafi used to do. Okay, is whistling permissible? I'm pathetic at whistling. I can't whistle like the way people, you know, they do all these super cool whistles, like it's got I wish I could, but yes, whistling is absolutely permissible, right? But I can't do it. Damn, I'm gonna make it haram for people. Jummah during Asr time, I've mentioned, if there was a reason, you can combine. It is permitted if there was a reason to delay. The correct way to do sujood al-sahw, I've highlighted this in a video. You can check that out. It's on YouTube as well. It's when I explain the prayer and I show that. Maj, is that you? This is people, Abdul Majid, who single-handedly has taken on the Hizb ut-Tahrir. Maj just dropped you in it there. Right, so people, I think with that, should we call it a wrap? Right, so if you're on Facebook, if you haven't already added me or followed me, or then do so on my public page. People, like that page, because that's where I'll be sharing things from. If you got any questions, message me on it. I do try to get back to people. If you're on Snapchat, add me, Malm 2014, MALM 2014. If you're on Twitter, you can add me at the same handle, Mufti Abu Layth. Likewise, Instagram. God damn, people, I'm trying to get out there. I'm trying to be accessible. Right, so Amandeep, okay, intentionally not answer. What was your question, Amandeep? I'm not sure what your question was. You said Amandeep's hair said the question's not been answered intentionally. I've not known what your question was. Like I say, you can ask any question you want on here. If you fire away very quickly, right, so I might just see. Otherwise, people, inshallah, it's been awesome. No, I can't see the question. No, nothing. Coolio, folks. Right, main message, people. Well, well, why don't you ask again when I'm asking? That's like when you ask, can I ask a question? So I said, would you mind posting your question? You post, well, I've posted it several times. Well, I can't goddamn see the several times, can I? You do understand I can only see 2 or 1 comment at a time, and it keeps moving on the live screen. Why can't we all just get on as Muslims and British being at war? No idea what that question is. Why can't we just all get along? Hell yeah, let's all get along, people. Amen to that. That's the thing. Love, not war. I'm all about that. Right, people? It's all good. Right, so inshallah, take very good care of yourselves. always remember to take out time for yourselves. Remember to laugh, folks. Have a good laugh or whatever you do, right? It's one of the most important things you can do. Spend time with people, your friends, your family, anybody that's important to you. Take time out for yourselves. Invest in yourselves. Learn something. Take time out to learn something that is new to you. Learn a language. Learn Arabic. If you haven't learned Arabic, it's awesome, right? So, Gov, shukran, hayyak Allah afi, shukran, I'm good. Barakallahu feekum. Take very good care of yourselves. Till next week, remember me in your kind du'as. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.